And welcome back to the Delaware Boys Dynasty Football Podcast, another sponsor stream by Yards Per Fantasy. I am Stephen Chalmers, joined as always by my boy on the right, Ryan Odell. Deli, say what's up to the people.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Just got done with the NFL draft, a few mocks. Now we're going to get into some of this rookie content. Tonight, we're going to start off with who we think has the best chance to rise and who we think has the best chance to fall in the upcoming season. So we're doing comparative, what we think the rookie season's projected versus their current ADP and what their ADP is going to look like next season. A little tricky, but as you hear us talk about it, you will start to understand. It's a little complicated to explain.
Yeah. It's just basically what rookies ADP we think will rise or fall. Pretty simple stuff here. Nothing too crazy. A lot of guys that we like going into this 2024 season with the possibility to explode, and a lot that we don't really like. Pretty simple. I'm going to pull up Keep Trade Cut just so you guys know it is universal. It's not what we use, but it is universal to the fantasy community. We're going to go off their ADP, and we're going to go from there.
I don't even think we need the Keep Trade Cut thing. Do you want to start out with risers or do you want to start with fallers? I think I tend to lean fallers first, but I'll let you make that call.
We can go wherever. Let's start with fallers.
Okay.
I want to give an example here. So let's give an example real quick. So let's look at quarterback.
Yep.
Caleb Williams comes in at QB6. Behind or ahead of QBs as is Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Anthony Richardson, Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, Trevor, Jaden. You get the gist.
Right.
So the question when I asked you today was at QB6, what is the possibility of Caleb Williams ever moving into the top 4 of Dynasty startups?
Yes, that's something we talked about earlier in the day, but it's tough, right? I mean, those top guys like your Mahomes, your Allens, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, even CJ Stroud. I mean, I think it's going to be tough, even out of the gate with the weapons he's given, to like surpass any of those guys. I think he's kind of hit his cap as far as risers go. What you're paying for him right now is probably the highest you will pay for him. I honestly think he can kind of move down a little bit, for being honest. I mean, he's ahead of, like you said, some guys like AR, who I think, if he can beat the injury allegations, could be ahead of him. It's tough. I think quarterback 6 is probably correct for him right now, but it's subject to change per usual.
Yeah, it's weird because Caleb Williams as the 10th or as the 6th overall ranked QB on Keep Trade Cut, the room for growth when it comes to his dynasty value is very minimal. Very minimal, with the possibility to slide massively based off of a subpar rookie season. I don't think it's going to happen. We've never said that, but crazier things have happened. So when saying that, this is the example we want to give. I think it's a beautiful example. I think it's easy to understand, and we're going to keep pushing. We're going to start with your first faller. Who do you got, buddy?
Start things off. I'll start with Rome Odunze, who right now I believe wide receiver 11, which is really high. He's coming into a room with DJ Moore and Keon Allen, right? Keon Allen's averaged around about 150 targets per season for the last 5 years. DJ Moore sitting around the 135 mark. Now, given Keon Allen's on a totally different offense than he was in Chargers, but he still demands targets, right? You think about it a lot more like the JSN situation last year. This time last year, JSN was also going as wide receiver 11. And he was also in a room with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, 2 established starting receivers in the league. I think you're going to see a lot of the same thing. I don't think you're going to see Rome Odunze this time next year near the wide receiver 11 mark. For example, JSN right now went from 11 preseason last year down to 25 as of today. I think you're going to see something similar here. Me and Steve preach patience with Rome Odunze. I think you should too. The rookie season's not going to look too pretty for him, but going forward, I think it'll be just fine.
Yep. I have Rome Odunze as a patient hold. You're going to draft him 1-6, 1-7, depending on where or how you feel about him. But you have to remember, there's veterans in this. Excuse me. There's veterans on the Chicago Bears team, guys that have put their time in. I know Rome Odunze is a top 10 NFL draft pick. I know Rome Odunze has an elite receiving profile. I know Rome Odunze has an elite perception chart. I know all of the analytics and the tape that backs Rome Odunze's game. At the same time, you're talking about Keenan Allen, who has been a staple at the wide receiver position for a long time. You're talking about DJ Moore, who has been super consistent in his Carolina career, now into his Chicago Bears career. You have a receiving back in DeAndre Swift. How are they going to use him? You have a veteran tight end who loves the looks in the red zone like Cole Kmet. What I'm saying is, Rome Odunze, there's a pecking order, and you have to pay your dues to step up on the pecking order.
Yeah.
With this one comes time, Ryan and I, this is one of the biggest fallers, especially for a guy with top 10 draft capital.
Yeah. It's going to be a tough rookie season, but I think he'll beat it. He'll beat it, but I think the window to buy him isn't right now. It'd probably be the offseason of next year.
Sure.
When his value is deflated. Steven, who you got for your first faller of the night?
My first faller, Mr. Brian Thomas Jr.
Yep.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I know a lot of people are high on Brian Thomas Jr., and I get why. Truly do. I understand he's 6'4". He's a big body dude, 6'4", 220, 4.3 speed. I get it. He led the FBS in touchdowns last year with 17. I understand you had to practice patience with him as well. Didn't start playing football till a sophomore in high school. Played behind Keyshawn Boutte, Malik Neighbors. I get it. There was a interesting stat that I saw. Xavier Worthy earned 9 10-target games in 3 years at Texas. Brian Thomas Jr. in 4 earned 1.
Yeah. Definitely concerned.
So I'm not saying anything negative about Brian Thomas Jr. because I like the profile. I think he has one of the highest ceilings of anyone in the back half of the first round. But the way that he's used and the way that he was used at LSU and the way that I project him to be used early in his career, I feel as if Brian Thomas Jr. may struggle in certain areas. Again, there's a pecking order here as well. Evan Ingram had 100 catches last year, drew heavy target volume. Christian Kirk, before the injury, heavy target volume. I know Calvin Ridley's gone. I'm not saying Gabe Davis is a great replacement, but Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. are the same wide receiver, big body, speed guys, great body control, contested catch monsters, play on the outside. Then you have Travis Etienne. Tend to forget about Travis Etienne a lot too. Right. Where does the volume come from Brian Thomas Jr. in year one? That's my main question that I need to ask, and I need to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's tough with him, right? I mean, I feel like really he profiles as that deep ball guy for Trevor Lawrence. Given Trevor Lawrence has a hell of a deep ball. I'm not going to argue that whatsoever. But like you said, Gabe Davis is also there. He's also a field stretcher. Brian Thomas, not the cleanest route runner in the world. He's got some things to clean up. I'm not saying he can't do it, but as far as this year goes, I don't expect production to be super crazy for him. Cannot emphasize enough the amount of targets that Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk are going to eat up this year. I know you already touched on it, but it's going to be not great. Brian Thomas' rookie season is not going to look good. Although the wide receiver 27 mark is a lot lower than Rome Odunze, I think he could fall much further than Rome Odunze will.
Wide receiver 27, realistically, you're pairing him with guys Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, T. Higgins, George Pickens in this range.
Xavier Worthy right there.
Xavier Worthy right there. You know, Debo Samuel, guys like that. It's
you
tough.
won't get that production.
It's tough. If you're going to get him in your rookie draft, fine. But if you're in startups, be a little weary of the hype around Brian Thomas Jr.'s name.
Yeah.
He is one of those receivers I feel like has had a very positive outlook from the Dynasty community, and I think that his value is a little inflated at the current moment. So I'm a little hesitant when it comes to figuring out what Brian Thomas Jr.'s value actually is.
Yeah. Rookie drafts, I don't mind them. It's just, I think right now for this podcast, we're strictly talking like startup ADP value.
Sure.
That's what worries me. That being said, I'm going to get my next faller. Anything else you want to cover on Brian Thomas?
No.
All right. Normally we save the thumbnail teaser for one of the last takes, but I got Keon Coleman as a faller. I think he's sitting around. Oh, thanks for helping me out. Wide receiver 32. As of right now, he's up, as you can see on the screen, 77 spots. I don't think he is done rising. I think training camp hype will move him up even further than he is right now. But as of today, May 7th, he's in the same range as Josh Jacobs, Isaiah Pacheco, Deebo Samuel, Rashad White, who are all established in the league. And then he's much, much higher than Mike Evans, Kittle, Deontay. Nonetheless, he worries me, right? You had Kincaid, who took over the second half of targets. Second half of the season, he took over targets from Josh Allen. He was getting about 8 a game, aside the 2 games he played injured. And I know you can sit here and tell me, oh, Josh Allen's a stud. He threw for over 4,000 yards with 29 touchdowns. I get it. That's great and everything. But what if I told you from week 7 on, his wide receiver 1, an elite receiver in Stephon Diggs, did not surpass 100-yard mark, period, week 7 on. He worries me. He doesn't create much separation. He's not anywhere near the receiver that Stephon Diggs was, ever will be. I'm so weary on him. I'm already low on Keon Coleman, and I think the more he goes up, the more caution I have for him.
Yes. A lot of people, when you bring up the week 7 on no 100-yard games from Stephon Diggs, want to blame Joe Brady. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. Maybe we were seeing the decline of Stephon Diggs. Granted, we're not here to talk about Stephon Diggs, but what I'm saying is Stephon Diggs from the end of 2019, all the way until now, we've talked about as an elite top 10 receiver, elite separator, elite wide receiver 1 for your redraft teams or your dynasty teams alike. And he has been nothing short of spectacular.
Sure.
And this is the footsteps that Keon Coleman is about to walk in. I necessarily don't love it. I've never liked Keon Coleman as a player. I don't think he stands out in any area other than the contested catch game. And I know he's a strong guy. I know he has elite body control, and I know he has – not that he has – I know that he will most likely win the 50-50 ball. I know that his skill set probably bodes well with Josh Allen in the deep areas of the field. So why I don't like Keon Coleman is for the same reason. I don't know if Keon Coleman is the next Vincent Jackson, and I don't know if he's the next N'Keal Harry. I'm not sure.
Tough call. In this range, at least at 82, I expect him to fall probably a good amount. I never really liked the guy. And I get, like, I try not to show bias in this, but then I look at these rankings. He's up huge the last month. And like I said, we're not even –
This is just on the draft alone.
Yeah. We're not even to the training camp when the rookie hype fever really gets into play. So, Keon Coleman already rising the way it is. I think I'm good on him at a value, especially in startups.
Yep. The thing is like people forget, yes, this wide receiver room is very thin. Very thin. Let's not even pretend like it's not. But Dalton Kincaid isn't a traditional tight end. Dalton Kincaid is a traditional inside slot, big body wide receiver. James Cook, heavy receiving volume, which I expect him to get more of this season. On top of that, I don't love Curtis Samuel, but we've seen Curtis Samuel have dominant seasons in the NFL. We've seen Curtis Samuel be reliable. And I don't I don't mind that pickup. Khalil Shakir has been in the offense for a couple years now. Maybe a step up from him as well. I don't know what to expect for Keon Coleman. I think he has one of the widest range of outcomes for any receiver going in your second round of your dynasty of your rookie startup or your rookie drafts.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think obviously Shawnee offense, Josh Allen connection, it's all lining up for Keon Coleman. Landing spot looks great. Joe Brady or not, Josh Allen didn't need a wide receiver one the second half of that season. Straight up. Didn't need him. No matter what you look at, whether you blame it on Brady or not, he doesn't need him.
They did what they did well. They ran the ball effectively. Josh Allen didn't turn the ball over in crucial situations.
Josh Allen in the red zone.
Wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs made plays when it needed to be happen. There was no featured guy. There was truly no featured guy. It's a spread the ball around offense. And I don't see Keon Coleman just taking a huge timeshare of these targets.
Yep.
Well, we can stay on the page here.
Round it out.
I'll be honest with you. This right here.
Yeah.
I know it's a cop-out answer. It really is. And
you could argue that.
I just want to say, if you look at the receivers that are in the same range as Ricky Pearsall, why?
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, he's in the same offenses, a bunch of studs. Kittle, CMC, Debo, Ayuk, down the line.
We're in the weird range of dynasty when it comes to Ricky Pearsall and the values. A lot of veteran studs that you're looking to move. But if you're not moving them, you're probably a championship caliber roster.
Right.
And you're competing. No rebuild team is going to have these guys on their rosters.
No.
So Ricky Pearsall comes in at wide receiver 39. He gained first-round draft capital. And that should be an eye-opener to a lot of people because Ricky Pearsall is one of those wide receivers we talked about that had a lot of potential coming into the NFL. Elite athlete, elite separation ability, elite speed, elite athleticism, elite ball, or elite ability to play the ball. And just an overall wide receiver that we liked as a quote-unquote sleeper.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the sleeper tag is out the window.
Yeah.
And Ricky Pearsall comes to one of the most – what's the word I'm looking for? One of the most –
loaded, prolific.
Loaded is a good word. Thank you. Sorry. One of the most loaded offensive cores in the NFL. Granted, he is a talent, and I do think that the Niners will eventually make a move to feature him in some way. But for the current time being, it's not happening.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's not happening.
It's rough. I mean,
and this is a run-first offense, heavily ran through CMC himself. Brandon Ayuk isn't seeing wide receiver one targets. Debo Samuel isn't seeing wide receiver one targets. George Kittle isn't seeing wide receiver one targets. This offense is just so explosive, it can produce relevant fantasy seasons for these guys. Ricky Pearsall is going to fall drastically.
Yeah, I'm absolutely worried. Especially, I was surprised. I was going through some of this list. For him to even crack the top 100 is amazing to me. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I see Christian Kirk, who probably have a better season. Amari Cooper probably having a better season. I get these guys are older. Pearsall could come into this offense, but a lot's going to have to happen for Pearsall to actually carve out a legitimate role in this offense. I mean, we talked about it draft day. It would have to mean Ayuk out the door, Debo out the door. One of the two has to happen for him to become the relevancy. I think it's a good football move for the 49ers, not so much fantasy football move.
I just want to point this out real quick. We're talking about, yes, a almost 30-year-old Amari Cooper, multiple wide receiver one finishes in the NFL behind Ricky Pearsall. Christian Kirk, the focal point of the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, huge lucrative contract signed, wide receiver 1 finish in 2022, 2023 injury related, but a wide receiver 2 nonetheless in that range. Let's say high end wide receiver 2 with upside here. Chris Godwin, multiple wide receiver 1 finishes, was a huge playmaker down the stretch in the fantasy championships and in the NFL playoffs. Deontay Johnson, multiple 140 target seasons. Target haul goes to an offense that's looking for a guy to carve out a role. It's going to be him. And then these are just examples. Terry McLaurin is 1 wide receiver spot ahead of Ricky Pearsall. That's crazy to me. Terry McLaurin, we all know what F1 is. We know that he's had some of the worst QB play possible in the NFL. These are just names around him, and it's a head scratcher to me.
And we're not even talking. I mean, there's running backs that are off this list, tight ends, quarterbacks that are off this list that I'm sure you would probably have a good bit higher than Ricky Pearsall. I think it 100% is a cop out, but it's a valid cop out.
Yeah. Some of the guys that are value, like Adonai Mitchell, who I believe is going to be a best ball player type of guy for the first couple seasons in a run first offense. But I do think Adonai Mitchell, with his skill set, could have some upside games. In the second round, he fell to the Colts. He's a second round draft pick now in rookie drafts. I don't know how much more he can fall, but I do know that the hype around Ricky Pearsall also is shooting him up these boards, and I do not believe he's done shooting up. Right. And that is why I believe Ricky Pearsall is going to fall.
Yep. So let's get into a little bit of the positives here. Make the switch back over to risers.
Yep. I got the first one. You want
to kick us off for a riser first?
Absolutely. This is the easiest one. This is also probably a cop-out answer. But if you look at number 68 here, that would be Mr. Xavier Worthy. First-round pick to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm going to be honest with you. This news today about Rashee Rice now getting into another incident with a media photographer. Not sure what happened. Not sure the validity of the source. I do just want to say that if this is true, and Rashee Rice is going to miss more games than he would after the initial car accident that he had earlier in the offseason, this gives Xavier Worthy a time to get playing time early. With Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, sometimes it might have been a little murky there. But if that's the case, Xavier Worthy gets a chance to earn some significant playing time.
Yeah.
And I know Patrick Mahomes' ADOT has dropped every year he's been in the league. It's scary.
Yeah. Especially after Tyreek's been out the door.
Especially after Tyreek. Yep. And this is where I think things change. You don't bring in a guy like this. You don't bring in a finesse guy, 4.2 speed with the ability to run routes like a demon. A guy was a true breakout freshman at Texas. And we've talked about his bad QB play throughout his time in college, but if he didn't have those things, that bad QB play at Texas, we could be talking about him as the wide receiver 3 of this class.
Sure.
And he got the best landing spot of anyone in the back half of the first round.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember here is the Chiefs moved up for him. This is a guy that Mahomes actively wanted, seeked after. And I'm sure he had a big hand in getting Worthy on this team. I think it could spell fireworks, put a little bit of fire back in this Kansas City offense. And like you touched on it before, if you see Rashee Rice miss the first 6 games of the season, that gives Xavier Worthy 6 weeks to carve himself out and roll in that offense. To maybe outbeat Rashee Rice for some touches or outbeat Hollywood Brown for some PT. There's legitimate things you look for in a rookie situation, especially with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, who's capable, you've seen it before, throw for 5,000 yards. I think that's money for Xavier Worthy. You talked about his skill set. We talked about it plenty of times before. I'm not going to touch on that anymore, but absolutely.
I think he's my 1.8 in rookie drafts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm willing to push him above JJ McCarthy.
It's a tough call between the two. I wouldn't argue with you.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I think it's a good conversation.
Yeah. So my first riser, and I actually, confession, slacked off a little bit on my preparation. I only have one riser for tonight. Steven's got two. I'm helping raise a puppy, okay? Things get chaotic in this house. So I apologize, but my one riser for the night is Javon Baker. Right now he's sitting at wide receiver 67. You got to go to page 2. But he's in the same range. He's buried with guys like Gabe Davis, Rashid Shaheed, Marvin Mims, Devin Singletary. We're talking about guys that you don't even love rostering on your team.
Quentin
And Javon
Johnston.
Baker, huh?
Quentin Johnston.
Quentin Johnston. I'm saying, right, guys you don't love on your roster. Now, Patriots bring in Drake May, who's their franchise quarterback. Let's face it. They were offered 2 massive deals to move out of that spot with the Giants and the Vikings. Patriots said no. They got their quarterback in Drake May, and they brought in help. Now, I could argue, Jalen Polk or Javon Baker. I went with Javon because he's got a lower ADP. He also is the only receiver on this Patriots offense that actually profiles as an X receiver. Everybody else, Juju, Jalen Polk. I mean, you get on the line. There's no real X receiver. We're talking about a 6'1", 202 Javon Baker, who is absolutely phenomenal in ball tracking on deep balls. He's got good hands, and he's great in the red zone. These are all things that I think point to success in the league. I get he slid down the boards. Draft capital doesn't point to immediate success, but I think he has an actual chance to get into this offense and get going relatively quick.
Yeah, I think this wide receiver room is wide open.
Yeah,
I know the Patriots have a lot of holes on their roster. I know it's not an exciting team. I know it's not something that everybody in fantasy is going to get excited about, and I get that. But the rebuild has to start somewhere.
Yeah,
they got their franchise guy. They brought in 2 wide receivers in Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. I know the draft capital difference is drastic when it comes to Jalen Polk in the second, Javon Baker in the fourth. But at the same time, there's a lot that's going to be answered when it comes to training camp, rookie mini camps, things like that.
Yeah.
Draft capital doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
if you're the better player, you're the better player. I've always had Javon Baker as the better player over Jalen Polk. Always have.
True.
Javon Baker is the X outside receiver, absolute beast of a man, one of the best ball trackers in this class, and one of the best contested catch rates in this class.
Yep.
He's an absolute stud that fell, I'm going to say, probably due to his lower RAS score. He was in the 7s. He didn't profile, and he didn't show out as an elite athlete at the combine. But I do believe Javon Baker at wide receiver 67 is a steal.
Yeah, I think in that range is money. I feel comfortable in that area in the startups to just smash Javon Baker and forget about it. We'll see what happens in training camp. I'm sure he'll rise a little bit off the wide receiver 67 mark, I would imagine at least. But as of right now, huge buy in this range.
Yep. I'm going to bring my guy up here.
Oh, baby, we're going deep for this one.
We sure are. So as you look here, this is player 204. This is Mr. Kamani Vidal, running back out of Troy. I just want to say, he went to the best possible landing spot of anybody in your 3rd to 4th round of your rookie drafts. We all know J.K. Dobbins' injury history. We know the knee. We know the Achilles. We know Gus Edwards is no spring chicken anymore. We know the deals aren't lucrative. These guys aren't long-term options for this. Austin Eckler is gone. This Chargers offense is completely rebuilding. And why not throw the dart? We're talking about a true workhorse at the University of Troy here. We're talking about a guy who was 3rd in the NCAA in rushing yards with over 1,620 rushing yards. We're talking about the number 2 overall running back for broken tackles forced in the NCAA last year. And he is going as running back 50. There's his counterparts right here. 47,
same
48,
range.
same range. Bucky Irving, Aldrich Estime, Roshan, Jerome Ford, Mostert, who I also think Mostert's a steal at that position. But I'm just saying, these guys, why not take the upside? I think Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, early are gonna get some touches. I get it, but I don't see how Kamani Vidal doesn't earn some type of role, doesn't get some kind of playing time.
Yeah, it's gonna be really tough. Let's be real. I'm sorry, I had something on my phone. I apologize, but yeah, Kamani Vidal. I mean, he steps into a great situation. You touched on it already. J.K. Dobbins. Not a lot of people come back from Achilles injuries. Period. Ever. I mean, James Robinson fell victim to it. Cam Akers recently.
Deontay Foreman.
We hold out hope for these guys. Like, oh, it's just, maybe he'll beat the Achilles. It has not been beaten yet. Honestly, it hasn't. And that being said, next in line, Gus Edwards, not ready for a full load either. I don't think any guy in this running back room is set for an actual, set-in role. But of the three, I think Vidal is the value here. Given Gus Edwards does not profile as a receiving back. J.K. Dobbins, we'll see what comes of him. This will probably be a three-headed horse, but I think Vidal has room to grow in this offense. Running back 50 is really low, especially you guys got Roshan Johnson, Jerome Ford ahead of him. Don't love that. I mean, I think he's a big riser. I think he's someone you can pluck in pretty late in your startups and just hold out hope. Kind of like Keaton Mitchell last year with the Ravens.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Who, in hindsight, shared the same backfield with J.K. and Gus last year.
There's also another running back I want to talk about here, too. So, if you look at Josh Jacobs here, Josh Jacobs is going as running back 14. Realistically, I don't think A.J. Dillon is a part of their future plans. He just hasn't lived up to the expectations that we had for A.J. Dillon coming into the league. But if you look at running back 36, I think this is another patience one as well, but I do see positivity in the Marshawn Lloyd draft stock here in Green Bay. So we all know Josh Jacobs just signed a lucrative contract. But in that contract, there is a 2025 out for $9 million.
Yeah.
Less than the league average that running backs get franchise tag for. That's not a drastic cut at all.
No.
So this part of his contract throws up some question marks. Always has with these kind of deals. Yeah, he's going to get paid. He's got guaranteed money. That's fine. But the out is the biggest part of the contract that I noticed that, draws a eyebrow raise here for me. But Marshawn Lloyd, the only issue that I ever had with his profile was the fact that he put the ball on the carpet a little bit too much for me. Other than that, we're talking about the typical NFL body size, 5'10", over 200 pounds, athlete, tested very well at the combine. Not a whole lot of receiving upside, but a lot of burst, a lot of broken tackles force. I believe he was top 12 in the nation in broken tackles force with limited touches. On top of that, he's never had a 200 carry season in college, whether that be at South Carolina or at USC. But a lot of burst, man, a lot of speed, a lot of decisiveness that I like when he comes to picking the holes and watching things develop. There's a lot of things I like about Marshawn Lloyd's profile. And this is a running back that I think could get some burn too. I really do. I just don't like A.J. Dillon. I haven't liked him for years now.
Yeah, I think neither of us have really been big on A.J. Dillon, period. I mean, he's disappointing. The year in, I think he's getting worse and worse as the years go on. Bring in Marshawn Lloyd. Not 100% sure what type of role he's going to play. I expect Josh Jacobs to absolutely dominate this backfield. I think he's due for a pretty big season. But mixing in a little bit of Marshawn Lloyd, give it 2 years. I think that out is that's a big franchise out. That's not a player out. That's a team out. $9 million is nothing. They can have him for 2 seasons and then say, okay, Marshawn Lloyd's ready. Let's get Josh Jacobs somewhere else. But are you willing to wait 2 years, keep him on your taxi squad for that long, and
Yes.
just kind of hope?
Yeah.
Yeah. The fumble thing, 100% a concern, but outside of that, pretty solid running back.
Yeah, just another guy that stood out to me. I saw him when I was scrolling, and I wanted to just bring up a point about him. The last guy that was big for me, as soon as I take this away, excuse me. Let me refresh. Alrighty.
QB.
So, QB 18. This be Mr. JJ McCarthy. The biggest thing with JJ McCarthy, we looked at for QB's success, NCAA success, NCAA champion, over 70% completion percentage at the University of Michigan. Top 10, or excuse me, 11. 11? Yeah, no, top 10. Jets traded back. Top 10 draft cap. And when we compare overall situations, for the long term, he landed in the best spot possible.
Yeah. Well, Caleb Williams, but
Caleb Williams at the same time. If you tell me that Justin Jefferson's locked in, you have Jordan Addison on a rookie deal, and you have TJ Hawkinson.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know if you can argue. I think both situations are elite. But I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this scheme with Justin Jefferson every time.
That's fair. 100%. Take the best receiver in the league.
So this is what I look at JJ McCarthy. I think he has a lot of room for growth at QB 18. I really do. This is in a weird spot of the draft, but I also think some of these guys here listed are undervalued. Dak 16, Tua 17, Purdy 14, Trevor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if JJ McCarthy does what he does, excuse me, and shows significant growth from this year at Michigan to his 2024 season with the Vikings, I think we could be talking about a huge rise for JJ McCarthy as well.
Yeah, this is kind of where I kind of disagree with you. I know you had him as a riser. I think if we're being honest, for me at least, QB 18 is about where he deserves to be. Jump into a Dak. I mean, I could see him jumping Drake May. Purdy. I mean, I think from that up is kind of locked in. McCarthy's probably – we talked about Caleb Williams not really being able to rise too much further than he is. I'm in the same boat with JJ McCarthy. I get he's in a great offense, but he's not really a runner, right? I think of him more as a game manager, kind of like how Brock Purdy is. Brock Purdy, QB 14, that's probably the ceiling for JJ McCarthy if he's great. As far as fantasy world goes, it's tough to pass guys at the top. Or some of these like rushing quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray, guys like that. I tend to think that McCarthy's kind of at his plateau where he deserves to be. I mean, I could maybe even argue that Jared Goff, a little bit older, but probably going to be a little bit more productive the next 3 seasons than JJ McCarthy would be. I think McCarthy sits where he needs to be right now.
Fair enough. I just like the overall situation. I like the overall.
Situation's great.
I like the ability. I do think Sam Darnold's going to start. I don't think you have to rush JJ McCarthy. I do like when QBs get time to sit, analyze the game from the bench, and see the differences between the NCAA level to the professional level. There could be a lot of turnaround in QB positions here. There's a lot of things here. Like, I know Tua just signed a deal, but Dak, I know Dak's going to be a starter in the league. But there's guys that are question marks here too. I mean, we saw Justin Fields just drastically fall off.
Jaden Daniels up there too.
Jaden Daniels is up there. We've seen a lot of QBs just drastically fall off as the years have gone by. I don't think every QB here in the top 15, top 20 is set in stone. I do think there can be movement. I think it's going to be harder, like you said, for Caleb to jump where he's at.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I think as you fall back to the QB 10 back, I think there can be movement. And that just may be the difference between you and I's thought process.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I agree with you. The players can fall off. I mean, Dak could not get re-signed by Dallas. So he can go to Oakland, and it's a totally different situation. But nonetheless, as of today, kind of tough for me to see.
Yeah, I mean, to each their own. You know what I mean? There's just
Yeah.
guys that, there's just guys there. So other than that, is there any other player that you would like to discuss?
I'm good. I was tempted. Well, I'll mention it as like an honorable mention for me. It was probably gonna be the guy that like I was gonna look at, but Tyrone Tracy, go Giants. I get it. But here's my thing with him. I don't want to touch on him for too long because we're hitting the 40-minute mark. But he's in a backfield with Devin Singletary, who has never really been a receiving guy. Tracy is that. He has a little bit of receiving upside to him. I think he can carve out somewhat of a role, get a foot in the door, and maybe rise up. I think he was at the like wide receiver the running back 100 range. So I think it's only up from there for him. We'll see what happens in camp with him, whether he can figure something out with the team or not. But kind of like him way, way, way down there as a guy that can maybe carve out something in the Giants offense, albeit not a great offense, but you saw what James Cook did in Buffalo. He took over the job with Devin Singletary. And I'm not saying Tracy will, but he's got a chance to do something.
Yeah. Another guy I just want to throw a quick honorable mention is Ben Sinnott. Show ran a little longer than we thought. Didn't get to talk about Ben a whole lot. But he came in at tight end 19. Not terrible. Not terrible. We saw the same thing for guys like Sam Laporta, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave last year, 19 to 25 in that range.
Yeah.
Day two tight end, solid receiving profile there at K-State, athletic, good player there. Washington didn't necessarily need a tight end. Well, they had a lot of holes to fill, let's just say that. So I didn't think tight end should have been as high on their priority list. But nonetheless, another weapon for Jaden Daniels. You got McLaurin, John Dotson, Eckler as a receiver. You got some guys to compete with. But I think Ben Sinnott could jump up the tight end list. Tight end 19, it's relatively low, especially for outside of the top 12 tight ends in Dynasty. I do like Ben Sinnott at his value as well.
Yeah, 19. Tight ends are so weird in that range that he could jump up and be top 12 week 1.
Yep. Well, we are going to be pushing the 45-minute mark here, buddy.
First time in a while.
Yeah, first time in a while. So I just want to say we appreciate everybody that stayed with us tonight. 100 of you guys here. We appreciate all of your support. Ryan, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, no. If you tuned in tonight, we appreciate you. Thank you for the time. Been a while since I've said this, but everybody watching now is just our absolute rocks right now. If we can just create any type of fan base, it's absolute love. Let us know how we're doing, what we need to do better on, per usual. Something I haven't asked in a while, but I'm going to throw it out there again. Steven, anything?
Yeah. If you like the content, as always, like, comment, most importantly, subscribe. Yards Per is pushing 2,000 subscribers. We are so close. So any support would be awesome. We appreciate that. Again, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. We have shows playing this week. We have a lot going on this week. We will keep you guys informed. But other than that, that's going to wrap it up for the night, and we are out.